First of all, I don't care where you're watching from. I don't require you to leave your city or state in the comments. I won't be asking you to drink anything either. I won't ask you to post numbers to validate my existence. I just like telling stories. This first one is about Chris. He gets the final upper hand and it's so much fun. Here we go. In my family, I was the ghost. I was seen but usually not heard. My parents liked it that way. My brother Carson was 4 years younger than me, and from the moment he was brought home from the hospital it was the Carson show in my house. My mother turned from a loving parent to a strict matriarch who told me that I was a horrible son. My father said absolutely nothing. I learned at the age of 4 that my parents didn't love me. I was hurt by this for a while, but like all children, I adapted. I stayed out of their way, usually in my room. I learned to code at a very early age. When other kids my age were outside playing, I was writing complex code. You see, I was extremely smart. My teachers sent notes home to my parents about this all of the time. The notes went into the trash and nothing was said about my grades or my boredom in classrooms. By the time I was 16, it was a foregone conclusion that Carson wasn't all that bright. He got grades that were constantly D or F. My parents coddled him and told him that the teachers just couldn't see his brilliance. My father owned a massive shipping business that he bragged to everyone would be Carson's at some point. The relatives noticed the disparage in the way they treated me but said nothing. They were too afraid that my father would cut them off. I didn't care. I had no affection for any of them. I only had affection and love for my grandmother. Ellen Collins was my father's mother, but she saw him for what he really was all of his life. She would tell me when I visited her on Saturdays that I was the future of the Collins family, and Carson was a coddled, useless brat who got away with murder in my parents' eyes. She told me that I was building something that would sustain me. I quietly told her that when I was 18 years old I would leave the family home and never look back. She nodded. When I graduated high school at the top of my class, my grandmother was the only family member to attend the graduation ceremony. She took pictures and cheered when I walked across the stage. She took me to dinner and surprised me by sliding a manila folder onto the table. She waited while I opened it and read the documents inside. I was shocked. My father didn't own the shipping business. My grandmother did. It had been started by my grandfather and passed to my grandmother when he died. She alone held the power to pass it down to whoever she chose to pass it to. "I will sell it when the time is right," she said. "I want you stable when I do it." I read the next document. It was for an irrevocable trust fund. She transferred her assets, the deed to her house, my parents' house, the shipping company, and most of my grandfather's fortune into the trust and named me the trustee. It was airtight and could not be changed without my express consent. She smiled as my eyes scanned the pages of the trust. I was a very wealthy man now. I had access to funds that could set me up for life. "Grandma," I said, my voice wavering, "why did you do this?" "Because I know they plan to cut you off when you leave for college," she said. "I wanted them to one day know that you, the son they effectively shunned all of his life, is in charge of the very ground they stand on. I want you to promise me something. I want you to promise that you will evict them when you graduate from college. I want you to evict them and never give them a dime. Those are my requests. They don't deserve the money or the house. The business is yours to do with as you see fit. You have no need of it. If I were you, I'd sell it to the highest bidder." "You've given me the keys to the kingdom," I asked. "It's an irrevocable trust," she said. "It can't be changed. You are the trustee. You are in control. When you decide or die, you can leave it to whomever you decide." "Grandma, why?" I asked. "Because of the way they treat you," she said. "You were treated like scum on the bottom of their shoes that they couldn't scrape off. I saw it all. You visited me every Saturday. Carson has been here when your family comes for Sunday dinner. He's never come on his own. I don't even think your parents know you come here on Saturdays." "They think I'm studying at the library," I said. "Well, let them think what they want," she said. "You evict them when you graduate. I want that house to be for you. This house can be for your child when you have one." "I'll do it," I said. "I'll evict them and sell the shipping company." "Good boy," she said. "Now let's have pie." She ordered us a slice of cherry pie a la mode each. We had pie and laughed about what we planned. To her, I was someone, a person, a loved one. To them, I was something they had to care for. They'd only done the basics all of my life. I'd never had a birthday party. I only had cake when Carson's birthday rolled around. He got parties and presents. I got presents from family members, but no presents came from my parents. For Carson, they went all out. I didn't hate my little brother, but I didn't love him either. He had basked in their treatment of him. He had never looked at me with anything other than indifference. I was just the other guy who lived in the house with him. After that dinner, I packed my clothes and headed for the college town. No one said anything to me. I just packed what I wanted and put it in the back of the car my grandmother had bought me for my 16th birthday. That had pissed my parents off. She'd bought it for me, and that was all there was to it. I drove to the college town and found an off-campus apartment. I moved in, bought furniture, filled the kitchen with foods that I like inside. I had the whole summer to work on code for an algorithm that I had originally been planning to hand to my father for the shipping business. It would track expenditures and give fast routes to delivery addresses and cut spending by millions of dollars. When I tested the algorithm just before classes started, it worked. I was thrilled. I licensed it to a local business who delivered goods to the neighboring cities. They used it and recommended it. Soon, I had 10 clients, and then 20. By the time classes were underway, I had 50 clients and was making good money outside of the trust. I used the trust for books and supplies. The money that I made went into an account that I locked down with two-factor identification. I didn't use my mother's maiden name or anything that anyone could guess. I used my favorite book for the first security question, and the year that Grandpa had given me his pocket watch. My parents didn't even know he'd given it to me, so that was perfect. I was financially secure without the trust halfway through my freshman year of college. My coding professor was amazed by this. He publicly praised my algorithm and called me a visionary. After the first year of college, I had more knowledge about business tactics and what to do. I listened to professors about bottom lines and marketing strategies. I went from 50 clients to more than half the shipping companies in the Midwest. My father had tried to license the software, and I had denied him. He didn't know who the founder of the LLC was that I had set up to license my software to companies. They paid the LLC. I was a ghost, just like I had been in the house I'd grown up in. I heard absolutely nothing from my family. I had weekly calls with Grandma, though. They still went to her house for Sunday dinners. They never mentioned me, and she never brought me up. She just told me that they were starting to tell her it was time to start thinking about her health. She laughed about that. Grandma was still sharp as a tack. Carson wasn't doing well in school. They had held a meeting with my parents and talked about him having to take an extra year to try to graduate. My mother complained to Grandma that the school just didn't appreciate Carson's genius. Grandma just nodded and let it go. Carson ended up doing 2 extra years because my parents refused to let him do summer school. I spent the holidays with Grandma. I did see my family when they came for Christmas. They seemed shocked that I was there. Grandma told them that I was her grandson and she'd invited me. They made passive-aggressive comments toward my schooling, asking if I had gotten loans. I just shook my head at them. The presents were lopsided again this year, but this time it was Carson who got less. I got sweaters, socks. She paid for a college sweatshirt for me and bought me a new car. Carson got a high school sweatshirt and socks. That was all he got. "You bought Chris a car?" Dad asked her. "He needs a more reliable car now," she told him. "He deserves it." "What about Carson?" my mother asked. "Carson failed his driving test," Grandma said. "Why would I buy a car for a kid who has no license?" "Mom," Dad said slowly, "he can retake the test after he completes the training again. He'll pass." Then why don't you buy him a car? Grandma asked. I've got Chris taken care of. Dinner was tense. Mom and Dad were clearly angry about her buying me a brand new car. It wasn't a sports car. It was a Ford Focus. It was black with leather interior, heated seats, and park assist. I loved it and thanked her profusely. That seemed to anger my parents even more. They tried to talk about Carson's achievements, but there were few of those. He wasn't athletic, artistic, or scholastically sound. Grandma told them that I had been doing big things at college. She didn't mention the algorithm, but she didn't have to. My parents tried to change the subject, but she wouldn't be derailed. She told them that I was getting excellent grades and my professors were all very pleased with me. Chris has always been a good student, my father said. We don't dispute that. But you never celebrated it either, Grandma said coldly. You paraded Carson around when he got failing grades to make him feel better. You always favored that boy, and it was to his detriment. You raised a self-absorbed idiot. Mom, don't talk about Carson that way, Dad snapped. He's a sensitive boy. He's a coddled boy, she said without heat. You made him that way, you'll see soon enough. What's that supposed to mean? My mother asked. Carson will amount to nothing, she said. He wasn't given the chance to succeed. You just told him that he was brilliant and let him believe it. Even though he is nowhere near as smart as Christopher, you could have made him do his homework a time or two. Maybe he wouldn't be repeating his senior year for the second time. Mom, I think you're confused about Carson, Dad said. I'm not confused about anything, she snapped. Don't sit in my house and try to tell me I'm confused. I've seen how you treat these boys. You gave everything to Carson and turned him into a self-absorbed, entitled boy who thinks the world owes him. You neglected Christopher his entire life. I've seen it, so don't deny it. You didn't even buy him Christmas presents. We didn't know he would be here, Dad said. You wouldn't have bought him anything even if you knew, she said. I'm so disappointed in you, Jason. I didn't raise you to be the man you turned out to be. I have half a mind to insist that the board fire you from the company. That's my company, he countered. No, it's my company, she snapped. I own the controlling shares, Jason. Don't test me too far. Mom, calm down, my mother said. Your heart. My heart is fine, Claire, she said. Don't tell me to calm down. Jason is getting too big for his britches. I had to set him down a peg. You'll see what all of this has done soon enough. What's that supposed to mean? Dad asked. Christopher will graduate next year, she said, smiling. Then you'll see, mark me, you'll see. Dad was so flustered by the time they left. Grandma cackled as she watched their taillights disappear down the winding road. She looked at me and said we would have cookies and talk about what to do and when. We munched cookies and talked about my father's destruction and their eviction from my house. She told me that when I graduated, she'd have the eviction letter ready. I laughed at this. She told me that I should sell the company as soon as I graduate. I told her I already had a buyer in mind. She laughed. When I got back to my apartment, my mother called and accused me of manipulating my grandmother. I told her to lose my number and hung up. I went back to classes and gained more business contacts for my algorithm. I excelled in classes and aced exams. I spent the summer with Grandma. My parents didn't come for Sunday dinners anymore. They call now and then and talk about the will, she said. Won't they be surprised when I die and there is no will? All of my assets are already dispersed. My mother called me right after I got back from winter break, I said. She accused me of manipulating you. I've had cognitive testing with 4 different doctors, she said to this. My lawyer was there and witnessed each test. He can testify and the doctors wrote reports. Well, I wanted to warn you that they're setting up a narrative where you're a confused, older woman who was manipulated by your grandson to cut another grandson off, I said. Let them spin their lies, she said with a cold smile. I have things waiting for them when that lie reaches the outside world. Just so that you know, I said, I'll bankrupt them, push them into the streets and sell the company, but they'll fight me on every step. They can't fight you, she said. That's the beauty of it. It's all legally sound and brilliantly packed up. Back at school, I listened to the angry voicemails of my mother. She continuously brought up the manipulation angle. I just deleted the voicemails and went about my studies. I didn't have time for her narrative. I packed up my stuff in the house. I was moving out at the end of the year. I packed what I never used and put the boxes in the back room. I went to class, took exams, and built my algorithm to perfection. I had so many clients that I hired a ruthless lawyer to help me with contracts. I even hired an assistant and 2 coders. We worked from my living room. I paid them well. I now had millions of dollars outside of the trust. It was amazing. Christmas that year was a shit show. My parents and Carson arrived at the house and Dad started in on Grandma's mental state. She got up and went in the other room. While she was out of the room, my father told me that he'd talked to a lawyer who specialized in elderly coercion. Grandma came back with a USB drive and a stack of papers. She slapped them on the table in front of my father. Then she plugged the USB into her laptop and pushed play on the file. My family sat and watched as Grandma was given cognitive testing. They saw all 4 doctors, and my father was reading the legal paperwork from these assessments. He put the papers down. There, she said, nodding to him. You see that the line you've been touting is total bullshit. You are a liar. I've already instructed my lawyer to sue you if you continue this nonsense that I'm confused and manipulated by Christopher. I'm not confused. I'm not manipulated. They were silent as they looked at the evidence of their lies. I just sat there, eating my pumpkin pie and watching them with a small smile on my face. The narrative was broken. They had no leg to stand on, and they knew it now. Now, she said, let's talk about Colin's logistics. What about it? My father asked, sitting forward in his seat. The company is owned by me, or it was, she said. It's been placed in an irrevocable trust fund that is in Christopher's hands. The money, the houses, the business, all of it is in that trust. Christopher is the trustee. He is in control of everything. She turned to me and I smiled at her. I looked at my father and said, when I graduate from college, you will move out of the house. Grandma has already drafted the eviction notice. You will step down at the company, and I will either hire someone to replace you or sell the company outright. You get nothing from the estate. What about Carson? My mother gasped. Carson gets nothing, Grandma said. You have given that boy everything already. Why would I? Mom, you can't do this, Dad said, looking pale and scared. I did it a year ago, she said. It's all sewn up tight, it's legal and binding. It can't be undone, that's what irrevocable means. You can go to an estate lawyer if you want, he'll tell you the same thing. You'll go broke fighting it, but it will still be what it is. You can't touch it, I made sure of that. You would put us on the street, my mother asked me, after everything we did for you. What exactly did you do for me? I asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry or rage. I just asked her coldly and calmly. We put a roof over your head, my father interjected. We fed you. You did all that was legally required, Grandma said. Nothing more. Birthdays, my mother said softly. He got us stupid gifts that he couldn't use, she said. You spent all of your time and money on Carson. Christopher has been financially taken care of by me. I have more news, I said, smiling at Grandma. I decided to just get it all out and let them see what the son they ignored was worth. I wrote an algorithm that is making me millions. As of November, my net worth is $252 million. I got up and went to my bag. I took out the bank statements, the incorporation of the LLC, and all of my stuff on the algorithm. I sat it on the table with the documentation for the doctors about Grandma's cognitive state. My father picked up the documents and looked them over. He saw it. He tried to license the software himself for Colin's logistics. He looked at me and his face seemed to lose even more color. "You did this?" he asked. "I built it," I corrected. "I'm the CEO and founder of Christo Solutions." "What's he talking about?" my mother asked, looking over my father's shoulder. "He's the founder of a company that tech magazines call the future of tech," he said. "He's worth millions." "Then you don't need the trust fund," Carson said, saying his first words since he'd arrived. "I don't need it," I agreed. "But I'll keep it because I'm the trustee." "You would keep your brother's rightful inheritance from him?" my mother asked in a shrill voice. "What rightful inheritance?" Grandma asked. "I'm not leaving him anything." "You have until I graduate from college," I said to my father. "When I graduate, I'll take residence at the house in town. You and your family will be out by then. You'll step down at the company immediately. This is non-negotiable. I won't bend on this." "You're firing me?" he asked. "Essentially," I said. I looked from him to my mother. "You were rotten parents. I craved your approval and love for so many years before I finally saw you for what you really were and stopped. I don't feel anything for you anymore. You are just people who share my DNA." "We're family," my mother said. "No," I said. "We were never family. DNA doesn't make family. DNA just means that we're related. The only family I have is this woman sitting 2 feet from me. You haven't been my family for a very long time. I stopped trying to play family when I saw how much playing the game hurt. I stopped. I no longer care about any of you. I'm done with you." "You'll regret this," my mother said. "You'll be alone when she dies. You'll have no one." "That's where you're wrong," I said, smiling. "I have a network of friends and colleagues that consider me part of the family. Family can be built. You don't have to play with the cards you are dealt. Even in poker, you can draw to get a better hand." "When you walk out the door of my house, don't come back," Grandma said. "You are no longer welcome." "Mom," Dad said, shocked. "Do mom me," she said coldly. "I watched you systematically tear Christopher down while you built up a fool. I watched as you greedily came to dinner, begging for scraps of my money over the years. You are parasites and I'm removing you from the host. You are no longer welcome. I won't think about you again after this day, but I'm sure you'll think about me." They left after that. They collected the gifts that she had given them and walked out of the house for the last time. I watched them go, and I didn't feel anything. They de-killed all of that years ago. Grandma and I had more pie and I picked up all of the papers from the table and put them back in my folder. She took the medical paperwork and put it back in her desk in the office. I left for my final semester of college, holding my head high. I reconnected with the friends and loved ones there. I told them all what had happened. They all knew about my parents and brother. They were all smiles as I told them what grandmother and I had done. The fallout was swift and devastating. They moved out of the mansion and into a 2-bedroom apartment in the industrial side of the city. I hired professional cleaners to clean the mansion and remove everything that stank of them. When I graduated, I moved into the mansion. I looked around at all that was mine and sighed. Grandma came to the party I threw to celebrate graduation. She was having a bit of trouble getting around, but she came. I introduced her to all of my friends and colleagues. She smiled and talked with them about their jobs and what they would do now that they were free. We had a grand party. When it was over, I showed her that I had sold Collins Logistics to a rival buyer. She smiled at this. I was free of all things connected to the Collins family. Wasn't that fun? Well, how about this one? This one is about Declan and how he gutted his family. Here we go. My name is Declan Porter. I'm 28 and I'm the invisible ATM for my family. It didn't start out blatant. It started small. $50 here for food, 25 there for help with this or that. Before I even understood what was happening, I was eating instant noodle, shivering in a cold apartment I could barely afford. All of this was because I was shelling out over half of my income to a family that didn't see me as a person. They never did. In my family, it was the Amy show. Amy was my little sister. She was the proverbial golden child of the family. They doted on her. Her every achievement was celebrated like a state dinner. Her achievements were largely not her own. She coasted on the backs of the people she worked with, taking credit for things that others did. I could see right through her. I didn't say anything about it, though. Things came to an inevitable crashing head the night of her engagement party. Amy was engaged to a man named Tom Faust. Tom was an investment banker's son who was also the golden child of his family. He hadn't done anything in his life to really celebrate. They were two polished fake people who were made for each other. The dinner was held at the Golden Crane Country Club. My father had spared no expense, which meant more money from me. There was shrimp cocktail, oysters on the half shell, and caviar. There was champagne, and there was sickening conversation about Tom's new business venture that would go nowhere. I sat in my designated seat at the kids' table and watched the slick, polished young man hold my father's rapt attention. He talked a big game, used buzzwords that meant nothing, but my father bought it hook, line, and sinker. He announced that he and my mother were paying for a lavish honeymoon. I sat up straighter. I looked at them wondering where the money was coming from. I found out 2 days later, and the answer set a course for the events that transpired just a week later. Apparently, my wealthy grandfather had left trust funds for me and Amy. Hers had been drained to pay for her influencer career. She had 150 followers. What I didn't know was that the trust funds were structured so that Grandpa was in charge of them until he died. Then the bank was in charge. Our signatures were required to move money out of the trust fund. My mother told me that they had used the funds to pay for the lavish honeymoon getaway. I asked how she had gotten the funds out of the trust fund in my name. She laughed and said that she was in charge of disbursement and she'd made an executive decision. I just nodded. I went to the bank and asked to see the trust documents. Because I was the designated trustee, they gave them to me. There it was, at the bottom of the document was my signature. Only it wasn't mine. It was a forgery. I asked the trust officer who was in charge of the trust. He told me it had been set up that my grandfather was in charge until he died. Then the bank was in charge. He said that I had signed the papers and allowed my mother to take all of the funds out of the trust. I asked him how much was in the trust to begin with. He told me $900,000. I nearly choked. She had taken $900,000 from me, forging my signature to do it. She thought I'd never figure out her crime. She was wrong. "That's not my signature," I said, pointing to the signature at the bottom of the document. "Mr. Porter, that is your signature," he said. "There were witnesses to it." "Okay," I said. "This is a bank and you have security footage. I want you to pull up the footage from that date and let me see me stand here and sign this document because I'm telling you I didn't sign it. The date on this form is the exact date that I was in California, signing a contract for my company's expansion. I can prove it." He asked me to wait there while he went to get the footage from that day. He told me it was all backed up on a cloud server. I sat there and waited for the footage that would show him that I wasn't in the bank on that date. He came back with a USB drive. "Let's watch this together," he said. "You'll see that it's all legal." He plugged the drive into his computer and turned the screen so we could both see it. I saw my mother walk into the bank. With her was my cousin, James Porter. I looked at him in the video, then I looked at the bank manager. "You can clearly see that this person isn't me," I said. His face went pale. "Let me see your identification again," he said softly. I produced my driver's license and social security card. He looked at them and handed them back. He got up and left the room. When he came back, he had fraud report paperwork with him. He filled out the paperwork and let me read through it. In it, it clearly stated that funds were taken from my trust fund without my signature. That forgery was used to secure the money transfer. I signed it, asked for a copy of the footage, the paperwork, and the trust documents. "What are you planning?" he asked. "That is none of your business," I said. "Just prepare the package for me." He had no choice. He prepared it all with copies of everything and a copy of the USB drive. I took them to the police station and met with Detective John Thomas. He specialized in criminal fraud cases. I handed him the package and sat in the chair beside his desk. He read through it and looked at the footage on the USB drive. He read the fraud report. He whistled through his teeth. "Who is the gentleman in the video footage that signed your name for witnesses?" he asked. "My cousin, James Matthew Porter," I said. "The woman with him is my mother, Margaret Porter. She had him forge my signature for witnesses so that she could drain $900,000 from my trust fund without me knowing about it." "You want to file charges?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Against my mother and my cousin. I'm thinking about the bank as well. The manager knows my family, and he knew when he witnessed the signature that it wasn't me." "Yes," he said. "We'll add the bank to the fraud case. This is serious, Mr. Porter. We will be charging your mother with bank fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. We will be charging your cousin, James Porter, with forgery and identity theft. We will charge the bank manager as an accomplice to forgery and bank fraud. Are you sure you want to go through with this? This will get a lot of press." "I'm sure," I said. "They stole $900,000 from me, detective. I want it back." "I'll take this to a judge," he said. "While I'm doing that, why don't you sever all financial ties to your family?" I sat there and pulled out my phone. I went into my banking app and canceled all transfers out of my account. The mortgage canceled. The utilities canceled. The support canceled. All of it was canceled. I felt an invisible weight lift from my shoulders with each confirmation. Things happened really fast. The bank manager was fired and charged with accessory. My family's accounts were frozen, pending the investigation. The bank issued a statement detailing the firing of Grant Morgan and distancing itself from him. I closed all of my accounts at the bank. I went to another bank and opened accounts, placing high security on them. I locked down my credit and closed every opening my mother could use to get more of my money. I filed paperwork of mismanagement on the bank that held the trust. I had it moved to the new bank with strict instructions about how it was to be handled. It was all federally backed. My mother was arrested at the country club. She screamed and fought, but she was arrested. When the charges were listed, her high society friends turned their backs on her. James was arrested at his place of employment. He was walked out of the building and placed in a squad car. My sister called me and told me that I was a monster. I told her that our mother had gotten James to forge my signature in front of Grant Morgan, and he allowed it so that she could take $900,000 from me. I told her that they had drained her trust fund to pay for her life, and they had come for mine to pay for her wedding and honeymoon. She was silent for a moment. $900,000, she breathed. Was that what was in mine, too? "You signed for her to take it all to pay for your life," I said. "You have no legal leg to stand on. I did not sign for any of this. That's why Mom is in jail awaiting trial. James is in jail because he forged my signature and stole my identity. I'm not a monster, I'm a victim. I stopped all payments to Mom's house and to you. I'm not funding criminals and accessories anymore. I'm done. Have a nice life." I hung up the phone and blocked her number. I went even further and bought a new phone with a new number. I gave it to virtually no one. I took the battery out of the old phone and donated it to a recycling center. Then I met with a real estate broker and bought a condo. I moved in but had to buy new furniture. I didn't mind. It was actually fun. My boss, Raymond Farges, watched all that was happening, commended me on being graceful under pressure, and promoted me to junior partner of the tech firm. I now had a corner office, an expense account, and a magnificent salary. I was going to be fine. In court, my cousin took a plea and threw my mother under the bus. The judge wasn't impressed. She sentenced him to 2 years in a federal prison. My mother was sentenced to 10 years in a federal prison. The judge said that she go the maximum sentence because she conspired with others to steal over $900,000 from her son. The judge said it was despicable. The bank manager was in so much more trouble. The bank handed the case to the FBI and he was arrested by the FBI. The bank agreed to pay back the $900,000 and the lawyers held them to it and got the clear structure of the payment. Once that was done, it was filed so that the IRS didn't immediately flag it as new taxable income. I severed all ties with my family that day. My mother and cousin are in prison. My sister and her fiancé have to pay for their own wedding and will have no honeymoon. My money is mine again. Well, that one was short. It was fun, though. I did a lot research for that one. Specific things had to be researched. I hope you enjoyed these tales. I'll write another one sooner or later. This is fun.